and ScoreNorth.com.
Heather and I love Minnesota. It's got to start with, first of all, you got to be really happy where you live, right? Because you can do two things. You can make a living or you can make a life. And most coaches go somewhere and they just live there. They're making a living because they're always looking for their next job, or perhaps it's not a great fit, right? Or they don't like the place they live and they sacrifice that just based on the job. At the University of Minnesota, it's a complete package for Heather and I. Row the boat, Sky Ma, go Gophers.
PJ Fleck there talking about his thoughts on obviously coaching the Gophers and having become a staple, I would say, of the community here during his time. Welcome into Mackey and Judd. It is Phil out again today, so it's Judd, Declan producing, and we're going to get to write that down today. We're going to get to a wrapping with our guy Patrick Royce, but we start in the perfect place for that PJ Fleck soundbite to be played. We start with an extended scoop with our guy Doogie. Hi, Darren. What's going on, man?
Good morning, gentlemen. Happy almost New Year. Happy Hump Day.
Exactly right. All right. So, Pellisero, our buddy, reports today via Twitter that Fleck is drawing interest from National Football League teams or a team, which obviously piques our curiosity. What are you hearing, and what do you know about the potential for at least PJ to get a sit down with a team to talk about an opening?
Here's what I know. His buyout goes down significantly here at some point here pretty quick once the calendar flips to 2021. Right now, I wish I had the contract in front of me. I believe it's around $10 million. The buyout goes down significantly. It goes down over half. Goes down to $4.5 million here pretty quick. I also know, connecting some logical dots, that his agent is Brian Harlan, longtime Chicago Bears employee, Kevin Harlan's brother. Dad, Judd, worked for the Green Bay Packers, correct?
President Bob Harlan, great guy. Yes, sir. President at one time.
Brian Harlan has a number of clients that work for NFL franchises. In fact, he represents Vikings assistant general manager George Payton. What I mean by that is Brian Harlan is in constant contact with NFL personnel. So Brian, I'm sure, has put out some feelers just to see if anybody might take the bait. The one team that makes a lot of sense is the Detroit Lions. Now, Declan, if you want to cue up the reckless speculation sounder, go for it, because I don't have to nail down.
Speculation.
But I'm just saying, if you want to start connecting, keep connecting these logical dots, all right? Detroit has talked about wanting to change. What's the popular buzzword in sports right now? It's culture. Okay. PJ, with his family situation, I don't think is going to ever be tempted by a job as long as his kids are of elementary school age. I don't think he is going to be tempted by a job that takes him far away from his kids. So I don't think PJ is going west. I don't think he's going south. He's got footprints in the state of Michigan. Michigan, last time I checked, is in the Midwest. It would keep him close to his kids, close enough, quick, flight or if need be, even a car ride.
Sure. And
Detroit recently hired Chris Spielman. Chris Spielman is, of course, Rick Spielman's brother. Rick Spielman's son, JD, was just recruited by PJ Fleck. When he left Nebraska, ultimately landed at TCU. But I can promise you, the Spielman family built up a nice bond with PJ Fleck. I think it's inevitable that Chris and Rick have talked and that the name PJ Fleck has come up. So you start just thinking about all of it. Now, do I think, if I had to bet right now, Judd, here on December 30th, Wednesday morning, that PJ Fleck is getting the Detroit Lions job, I would still be surprised. I think PJ Fleck is the Gophers coach in 2021. But do I think it might make some sense for him to take the interview just to learn about what that process is like?
Sure.
Yeah, I absolutely could see something like that. We could also debate, Judd, whether his shtick would work in
That's what I was going to say, Dukes. I don't think it would. I really don't. I think it probably works really well with kids, and it probably works really well in the recruiting process. But boy, Dukes, if you're talking about, you know, a 29-year-old, 30-year-old veteran player who's sort of hardened to life in the National Football League, I don't know. I would compare it to what Holtz did in, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, Dukes, 1977, when Holtz took the New York Jets coaching job, and I think he lasted like 12 games or 14 games, and then basically I think was fired / quit. PJ seems to me to be college-wise in the ideal environment. I just don't think an entire team of professionals and grown men would buy into that for long. Now we are seeing, in fairness to PJ, more guys like that. I think a guy like McVay with the Rams is very optimistic and has some buzzwords and stuff. But Fleck seems to me to be, Dukes, that next step. So I would have some real reservations if PJ Fleck's act would work in the National Football League.
Yeah, well, you bring up McVay. McVay and Fleck have a nice relationship. I do think there's something to be said about, you know, you talk about the shtick, Judd. What about just his in-game management?
Oh,
You know, scheme-wise.
well, look at Zim,
Like
though,
the
dude.
X's and O's. Is PJ Fleck ready for that challenge? Now, you could argue, hey, you hire the right staff. You know, you don't need to be heavily involved in a lot of that stuff, but I still think as the head coach, you need to be involved somewhat. You know, so I think we can debate that part of it too, that he still has a long way to go as an actual coach. Now, as a manager of people, being able to connect with individuals, Judd, I actually think he could connect with a bunch of 28 and 29-year-olds. And Detroit's got enough guys that are second, third, fourth year guys that are, you know, closer to 23 or 24. I think he would be okay managing a lot of those egos. I do. I just think he's got this way about him where that could work. But I sincerely wonder about just him as an actual coach, whether that would translate to the National Football League.
And if it indeed is the Lions' job, Dukes, my God, like at some point in time, I would just take a hard pass and say that's like the one job. Until they prove that they're, to go back to the buzzword that you used, until the Detroit Lions prove that from the top the culture has been changed, I want no part. Because I really think when you see a systemic problem like a team like Detroit has, to me, that's not a coach problem necessarily. That's not a player problem. That's a problem that starts with the people that own that team and how they go about their business. So if I was going to be the guy that stepped in and said, okay, I think I've got a chance to end this, I would need to be assured that there were checks and balances in place that probably have not been in place with the Lions for, seriously, 35, 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were ranking like the desire level of these NFL openings, at this point, isn't Detroit rock bottom? Like you'd rather, even with the draft picks gone, you have Deshaun Watson in Houston. I think you would take the Houston job over Detroit. Jacksonville is about to have the number one pick. You would take the Jacksonville job over Detroit. I still think you would take Atlanta over Detroit. Now, maybe you wouldn't take the Jets. I imagine come Black Monday on Monday that Adam Gase will get fired. So I guess you could debate that you would take the Detroit job over the Jets job. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, it's not a real appealing job. Now, is there something to be said, Judd, about the bar is so low that if you merely do anything, they literally will build a statue of you? Although I guess the comeback to that would be Jim Caldwell did that, and he inevitably got fired.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess that goes back to 30 and 40 years of just, you know, systematic just failures with the Ford ownership group.
Yeah. Just to be a skeptic here, is this in any way on PJ's part or his agent's part, do you think a play to go back to the Gophers and try and get more? Because there's no way coming out of a pandemic that I see them doing that. But my skeptical nature always tells me that when you start to be like, hey, I could go talk to the Detroit Lions, that is ultimately a play to try and get your contract up at least a little bit.
I think him and Brian are too smart. I don't think they do that. I mean, PJ and Mark Coyle are in lockstep.
Okay.
I have a hard time believing that PJ would give Brian the green light to go to Mark and say, you know what I'm making right now isn't enough. I need another raise. I mean, he's
And not
got
now.
multiple raises already. I just during this pandemic,
Yep.
when you see the sports being cut at the U, with multiple employees taking pretty significant pay cuts, I have a hard time believing that PJ would go to his agent and say, "Hey, go to Mark Coyle. Let's renegotiate this thing." I would be floored.